Hello, film babies. It is I, Film Adult, and I am here today to do a very important thing, a yearly tradition. That thing is to fill out my Cinemateq Film Awards 2025 nomination ballot. If you are new to this channel, if you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, let me fill you in. Every year, we hold the Cinemateq Film Awards, the best film awards on the planet. And the way that we do this is that we do it in two rounds, the nomination round and the final ballot. All of you sitting at home right now can go down in the description box, click that link, and tell me what you thought the best films of 2024 are. That is your opportunity. Everything gets ranked, everything gets compiled, and then we get the final ballot, which once again, you will get to vote on. So here is the first page of the ballot. There are rules here. Please read them. The one rule that you do need to be aware of is that this nomination period will end on February 2nd, and then I will announce who the nominees are before the weekend of February 8th, and then the voting will start. The Cinemateq Film Awards always happen the Saturday before the Oscars, so this time around I think it's March 1st. Check your calendars and mark that down. Now I'm going to fill in this entire ballot, but don't worry, I'm not going to force you to watch that. This is not a live stream. I'm not trying to kill or waste your time. Instead, I will use my special Cinephile Supreme power to warp time in a way that will make it look like I'm actually working incredibly fast. But time for you will be normal. It is incredible. I know I bear the great weight of responsibility being the Cinephile Supreme, but I do want to assure you that this is not some kind of cheap editing trick. I am not fast forwarding in post-production. This is not a $200 million movie. We can't afford to do things like that here. With that said, let's go back, forward, to the future. Whoa, okay. Are you guys all right? Because I just went really fast. I went so fast that I think I broke the sound barrier, but made no sound. Is the world still intact? If so, let me just run through all of the films that I am nominating with my Cinemateq Film Awards ballot, and to maybe teach you guys a little bit about the strategy of nomination. For one, this is a ranked ballot. So your first option gets 5 points, your second option gets 3 points, and your third option gets 1 point. So where you place your pick matters. So let's illustrate that with the very first one right here. Best Feature Film of 2024. This is the biggest award that we hand out. And you see here, I've got The Girl with the Needle in first. This is my number one first pick. Is this the movie that I think is the best film of the year? No. But I don't think a lot of people saw this film, and I don't think a lot of people are going to vote for it. So I'm putting it in first because I want to give it the maximum amount of points. My actual best favorite movie of the whole year was Dune Part 2, and that is in third place right down here. And in second place, we've got Anora, my second favorite film of the year. So there you go. There's some strategy. Let's move on. Best non-English language film of the year. Once again, throwing The Girl with the Needle up there in first. I desperately want to get this film as many nominations as possible. That may become a theme as we go through all of this. Next up is Kill the Jockey, an Argentinian film, and the last one is the latest film by Hong Sang-soo, the South Korean master of slow cinema, By the Stream. All great films, all highly recommend. Check them out if you ever have the opportunity. Next we have Best Animated Film, and I'll be completely honest, I didn't see a lot of animated films this year, and the only films that I thought were worthy of nomination were Wild Robot and Flow. I assume both of these films are going to get nominated fairly easily, so I'm not too concerned about where I put them, but you'll see here that I am leaving third place completely blank, and that's fine. If you didn't see an animated film at all, don't feel like you need to nominate any. It's totally cool to just leave something blank. That will become more apparent in a future category. Best First Feature Film. This is one that I love, because I just love being able to shout out up-and-coming filmmakers who are doing a great job. Now this one, no strategy. I just put these in the order that I think they deserve. Number 1, The First Omen. I think probably the best horror debut of the year. I love seeing this in theaters. The atmosphere was fucking phenomenal, and I probably would have rated it a 4 out of 4 or a 4 out of 5 and had it be my favorite horror film of the year, if not for like the last scene being kind of dumb. Then in the second position, we've got Blink Twice, and in the final position, we have Monkey Man, that action movie that was okay enough to get nominated, I think. Next, we have Best Documentary, and I've left everything blank. I saw, I think, 2 documentaries in the entire year, and I didn't care that much for either of them. I certainly don't think they are worthy of nomination, and so I have just left this entire category blank. Please, film fans at home watching this, show me some goddamn good documentaries from this year. I need your help. Next up, we've got Best Comic Book / Manga Film. This will be any film that is based off of a pre-existing comic book or manga. So I'm sure a lot of anime is going to get put in here. I'm sure a lot of Marvel and DC films are going to get put in here. I didn't see anything that was really worth it. But then you know what? I think Madam Web is actually the best comic book film that I've seen all year. I actually think it was the best one. So I'm going to include it. I'm including it for fun. Next up, we have Best Horror Film of the Year. And for this, I put in Oddity. If you have seen my video about my favorite films of 2024, you will know that Oddity was my number 1 horror film. Traditional horror film, I would say. The Substance is here. It's in the 3rd place. I don't know if I would call it traditional horror. It is more of a body horror film. Still horrific, certainly, but slightly different. The Oddity made me scared. The Substance made me happy. So it's a bit of a different kind of horror. And then right in the middle, I've got Abigail, which was just unserious and bloody and so much fun. I had to get a nomination in here for it. I really enjoyed this movie. Next, we've got Best Science Fiction of the Year. For number 1 here, I did a little bit of strategic voting. I put The Assessment. I don't think anyone's seen this film yet. It stars Elizabeth Olsen and Alicia Vikander and a couple of other people that you may recognize. I saw it at TIFF. I don't think it's gotten a wide release yet, but I saw it in 2024. It is science fiction, and I think it's one of the better science fiction films that I saw, so I'm including it because there's no way that I actually need to put Dune Part 2 or The Substance in the number 1 spot. Both of these films are probably going to get nominated on their own without my help, but here they are because I can't just say that they weren't some of the best science fiction of the year, because they absolutely were. Next up, we have Best Fantasy, and for here I put Nosferatu number 1. Also, for those of you in the comments saying, why the hell didn't you nominate Nosferatu in horror? Nosferatu doesn't need my help to get nominated for Best Horror Film of the Year, so calm down. Or stay angry and give me that engagement, whatever you feel like. Next is a Spanish language film that I saw at TIFF called Pedro Páramo. I thought it was Piermo. Maybe I need to look at how that is spelled. But yeah, it's surrealist, takes place, I think, in the 1800s. Very fun. I like it. Check it out if you can. It is, I believe, directed by Martin Scorsese's cinematographer, or Pedro Almodovar's cinematographer. Someone's cinematographer directed this film. And then for Final Fantasy, for the Final Fantasy film, I did not put a Final Fantasy film, I put Wicked, because yeah, it kind of is okay enough to get nominated in my mind. And if you're wondering to yourself right now, after going through those genres, well, how do I know if something is fantasy or sci-fi or whatever? If you filter by that genre on Letterboxd, and you see the film there, I am probably most likely going to accept it. I know Nosferatu as a fantasy is a little iffy, but Letterboxd says it, and Letterboxd knows all. Next, we have Best New Film Restoration of the Year. For this, I am looking specifically for films not from 2024 that had new restorations released in 2024. I know that can be a little bit confusing, but I've laid it out here at the top. And I probably should have changed that 2023 to 2024. Whoopsie. But if you need a little bit of inspiration, you can go to this link that I've given you. If you're one of those people out there who buys physical media, watches physical media, you'll know what has come out in 2024, and hopefully this list will not be too difficult for you. And if you don't know anything, once again, leave it blank. No problem. For me, I put in here Lone Star. This is a movie from 1996. Criterion put out an excellent 4K restoration of it this year. It looked absolutely phenomenal, and I highly recommend checking it out if you have the opportunity. And that's going to go for all of these. We also have Bob Le Flambeau, which I believe was put out by Kino, their 4K of this film. A great crime heist film from the mid-1950s. Loved this film a lot, and it looked great. Once again, another high recommendation. And then this one is one that I own. Violent Panic, The Big Crash from 1976. This was put out by Film Movement Classics. It's a sub-license or sub-whatever of Vinegar Syndrome. And one of my favorite first watches of the year. I included it in that particular video that I put out. Looks great. Colorful film. Lots of ridiculous stuff going on, and the restoration looks pretty good. Even though it's only a Blu-ray restoration, it still looks phenomenal. Next up, we've got Best Director, and I'm keeping things pretty simple here. Girl with the Needle, as I said, up top. Dune Part 2, because Denis Villeneuve will not be denied. Not in the Cinemateq Film Awards, gosh darn it. And then down in third place, I put The Brutalist, because making that movie on $10 million, like, you are a really good director if you do that. So I had to shout out that movie in this category. Next, for Best Cinematography, I decided to put Oddity, the horror film, #1, because so much of the horror in that film is a direct consequence of how good the cinematography is, and so I couldn't just ignore that. #2, I put The Girl with the Needle. Once again, I think this is a brilliant looking film. It's so detailed and so exact. Please go watch it. It's streaming on Mubi. Please go watch it on Mubi. And then we've got The Brutalist down here because, once again, shooting a movie that looks that good on 70mm for $10 million, you deserve recognition. For Best Screenplay, this one was a little bit hard for me, and it's often a little bit hard for me. I typically just end up nominating films that I just nominate for other things, but then I think about, oh yeah, was the dialogue good? Was the story good? It's kind of a weird one. But in any case, I put The Girl with the Needle. The story is wild. It's fucked up. It's prescient. It's a lot of things. Anora is chaotic. It's ridiculous. It's over the top. And I think that comes directly from the screenplay. And The Substance is clever. It's a fun twist on the body horror genre. And I think that the writer had a lot of fun putting it together. And I had a lot of fun watching it and experiencing it. So I'm putting it in here too. I figure, why not? Let's put The Substance in 3. Next, we got Best Sound. I didn't really hedge my bets here or anything like that. I just put Dune Part 2 because I think it had the best sound of the year. Like, you know that's a 4K you're going to pick up and play on your sound system as best you can because it just sounds phenomenal. Then you've got The Brutalist down here. I remember that opening scene where they're on the ship, and that still gives me shivers, and a lot of that's coming from the sound. Also the score. And then I've got The Girl with the Needle down here because I want it nominated in everything. It's one of the best films of the year, and one of the things that it did so well was sound. Gotta have it. Gotta have it. Next, Best Editing. Girl with the Needle. Again. A lot of stuff in this film took inspiration from old silent films. The editing, not so much, but there was some interesting techniques used that I think you can draw a direct parallel to. And then, once again, the way that this film is just able to hit you with like big emotional moments in a couple of instances, knowing when to cut, knowing when not to cut. It's just doing everything at a high level, and I love the hell out of that. Next, for #2, I'm putting Anora in here. This film is, once again, chaotic, but it flows so well. It's paced incredibly, and editing is just mwah, wonderful, wonderful stuff. And then I put Challengers in here because I feel like Challengers is a film that relies heavily on the edit to build the persona of the film. The personality of the film comes directly from both the editing and the music, I think, for Challengers. So it made sense to include it here. Best Production Design is up next. We've got The Girl with the Needle, surprise, surprise, followed by The Substance. I still can't get those goddamn hallways out of my mind. I know it's a simple thing, what they did, but also it's such a simple thing that it makes other films look bad for having not thought of that simple thing. And then finally we have Nosferatu, because that thing was just dripping in production design, like insane levels of production design. That should win the Oscar, quite frankly. And if it doesn't, we riot. Next, we got Best Costumes. It's going to be very similar to the last category. We've got the girl with the needle here. A lot of period piece things going on in that film. There are very obvious class distinctions that you get first from the costumes before anything else. There's a lot of smaller stories being told with costuming in this film. It deserves to be there. Dune Part 2. Those still suits are really fucking hard to make. Throwing it in there. And then Nosferatu, once again, just like in the last category, it is a period piece and the costumes sing. They absolutely sing. We all know that Count Orlok is going to be a fashion icon in like 3 seconds or less. So less said about that, the better, probably. Don't take your dick out in public, though. Best hair and makeup, it's the girl with the needle again. There are some somewhat body horror-ish things done in this film that still are in my mind, and I can't ignore that. And then once again, this is a period piece. There is a lot of dirt, a lot of grime in this world, and that is reflected quite heavily in how the people in the film look. Dune Part 2 is exactly the same way. You can feel the grit and the sand on every single person who's in that film. And that's not just the actors being in the sand all the time. That is on purpose. Same thing for Nosferatu, although not so much in a sand kind of way. And how are we going to not acknowledge that brilliant Orlok mustache? It's got to get nominated. And now we've got Best Original Score, and of course, my man, Trent Reznor and his pal Atticus Ross. They're going number 1 for challengers, baby. No doubt in my mind. Then in number 2, we've got The Girl with the Needle. Love the soundtrack in this. It's one of those films where as I'm watching it, I'm like, thank God they didn't go with like the typical kind of score. It's absolutely different than just the typical swelling violins, and I'm so thankful for that. And then we got Nosferatu, which has a number of elements in it that I remembered from the score of The Witch, and that just made me happy and nostalgic, and it's here for that reason. Now we're on to the Best Leading Performance, and for those of you who are new here, we are gender agnostic when it comes to these nominations. So, Best Leading Performance is for men, women, non-binary people, trans people, whatever. As long as it was a leading performance, you nominate it right here. For me, Best Leading Performance was Vic Carmen's son from The Girl with the Needle. I thought she did fantastic. At least, she's the one I'm putting in the number 1 position. Once again, I don't think Girl with the Needle is very well seen. I don't think it's going to get a lot of nominations, but I want to try my best. The actual best performance of the year, in my mind, was Mikey Madison Honora. Whether it's leading or supporting, that was the best performance of the year. She was brilliant from front to start. I loved the journey that she went on, and I can't imagine a single other person doing that role the way that she did it, as well as she did it. Phenomenal stuff. And then I also think I need to shout out Lily Rose Depp for Nosferatu. There was a physicality to her performance that I was not expecting, and she pulled it off really goddamn well. There might have been some editing tricks here and there, but she killed that. She did really, really well. And then we've got Best Supporting Performance. I'm putting Yura Borisov from Anora number 1 because I just desperately want him to get nominated. I very, very much want him to get nominated. I've loved him since seeing him in Compartment Number 6. I hope that we will see him in more films. Great actor. The way he was able to keep himself calm and empathetic, and you just wanted the best for him, even though he wasn't overly emotive throughout the entire film, I think is a real testament to how well he did in that role and how good of an actor he is. So I'm putting him number 1. Best Supporting Performance number 2 is actually Alicia Vikander from The Assessment. She does a kind of more physical role in this. Not as much as Lily Rose Depp's performance in Nosferatu is physical, but physical nonetheless. And one of the prerequisites I have for this category is that the person is a scene stealer. And I think that Alicia Vikander in The Assessment was definitely a scene stealer. And then we have the person who probably stole the most scenes all year. It's Javier Bardem in Dune Part 2. He played Stilgar. He said Lisan al-Gaib a lot, and we chuckled and we loved him and we all wanted to have him as a best friend. So he's going in there 100%. Finally, last category, Best Stunt Performance, because we do things better than any other awards ceremony, right? Academy Awards. We actually acknowledge stunt performers around here. For me, I put here Civil War. I can't ignore how well the stunt performers did, especially in that last 20 minutes or so of the film. And of course, this is more than anything a war film. a lot of stunts were going on throughout the course of this movie, and I think they did a pretty good job. Abigail, I'm also including in here. Lots of fighting, lots of blood, lots of physical action, lots of physical comedy required. I'm sure the stunt team went through a lot and had a lot of fun doing it, so I'm giving them their props. And then finally, of course, we have Dune Part 2. So much fighting, so much doing of stuff in sand with knives. Difficult, I'm sure, and I think they pulled it off incredibly well. They need their dues, and I think they should get them. And that's it, film babies. Go fill out a ballot right now, link in the description, and maybe one day you can become a film adult like me.